April 2026, tentatively. So we have present with us today uh, Ms. Simren Singh, who was there as the gender lead while the study was going on. So she'll be setting up the context for the discussion today. Ms. Simren, a very warm welcome to you. We have after that, we'll move on to our lead researcher, Dr. Rajeshwari C, Assistant Professor, Organization Behavior and Human Resources at IIM Kozhikode, India. And then we'll have our country level presentations from Australia, from Jordan, from Philippines, South Korea, and Sri Lanka. I very warmly welcome all our country researchers who are present today. Thereafter, we will have a 15 minutes of open discussion, which will be question and answers, and also a 5-minute comment and reflection by Professor H.K. Mishra, who is the Vice Chairperson of ICA-AP CCR Committee. A very warm welcome to you, sir, as well. So this is the flow. I am excited about the conversation today. Over to you, Simran.
Thank you so much, Nitya, and warm greetings to all. I hope I'm audible. Okay. It is my pleasure to be here today and seeing all my friends after a long time. I would like to begin by expressing my sincere thanks to the ICAP Research Committee for inviting me to the 17th Cooperative Colloquium focused on the study on the review of gender policies in cooperatives by the ICAP Women's Committee. I have worked with the Women's Committee for almost 6 years, and it has been one of my most defining experiences at the ICAP Regional Office. As the former secretary of the committee, my role extended beyond developing and coordinating meetings and activities. It also involved observing what members were doing to advance women's empowerment in their respective countries. Given that most women members held senior leadership positions at the national level, my perspective was largely shaped by a country level lens. In many ways, my role was to quietly witness how women leaders across the region are shaping the cooperative movement and driving forward the women's empowerment agenda within their respective context. The work of ICAP, as some of you might know, is reflected through its regional thematic committees, and it is situated at the intersection of policy analysis and policy influencing. Within this space, we review and study existing policies as well as practices through research, member interactions, and platforms such as seminars and forums. The observations and insights gathered through these processes contribute to shaping future policy directions, both internally within ICAP as well as in terms of what we advocate for among our members, particularly in advancing reforms. A key part of this approach is promoting cross regional exchanges that enable shared learning and strengthen collective impact. Now, to be more specific, one of the key learnings from my engagement with the members of the Women's Committee in the past years was that there is no shortage of initiatives in the name of women's empowerment and gender equality. Across countries, a wide range of activities are being undertaken, often aligned with global movements such as International Women's Day or the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. These include mental health webinars, recognition and awards for women, and various thematic trainings. Whereas in policy discussions, we encountered examples such as reservation for women on cooperative boards in Nepal and the mandatory gender and development framework in the Philippines. Now, while it was evident that a great deal was being done, a more fundamental question continued to guide our thinking within ICAP. Are these efforts anchored in coherent pan national policy frameworks? Specifically, we were interested in understanding whether national cooperative apexes or government departments have comprehensive gender inclusion policies that apply uniformly across cooperatives. And if so, whether these policies are supported by clear mechanisms for accountability and reporting. And in doing so, we consciously moved beyond our usual standard approach of recognizing standalone initiatives on women's empowerment or gender equality. Instead, we aim to look deeper at the large vision that connects these individual initiatives in the form of events, trainings, etc., and what these initiatives are collectively working towards, and what are the long term outcomes that they are intended to achieve. My research friends here, who have closely worked in this study, will shed further light on the study objectives, findings, and recommendations. But I hope through this brief overview, I could give you a sense of understanding on how we pin down on this study and why we uh, decided to conduct this study. And that's all for now. And thank you very much once again to everyone for listening and inviting me to this platform.
Thank you. Thank you, Simren. Um, I would like to now invite Dr. Rajeshwari to discuss the objectives of study with us.
First of all, thank you for including me again in one of these very interesting and meaningful discussions for me and for uh, all of us. For second thing, while I'm going ahead and introducing the objectives, I thank Ms. Simran for each and every effort she has taken in shaping these objectives and the study as we went ahead. Both her insights, her experience, and her efforts in shaping these discussions as we started and writing this report both have helped me personally and I think all of us in shaping this study. To start with, this study started with the understanding that, as Simran already said, one of the major objectives of cooperatives, as I understand and I relate with, is the economic empowerment and sustainable development of economies and the social stature of people from all kinds of uh, backgrounds and groups or even categorizations. So from there, one of the identified, recognized, and agreed upon issues is women's participation in economy of all countries and also the role of cooperatives in shaping those. So what is the status of women in through when looked through the policies at national level was the initial beginning point where we started to go ahead with the defined objectives. So we wanted to review and analyze what are the gender policies existing in cooperative sectors in the 10 countries, Asia Pacific countries that we chose for the study. We wanted to see if policies existed at country levels, if those policies existed at from which were formed, shaped by governments. We wanted to study, we wanted to look into how it is framed and how it is implemented, both sides. If after that level, we also wanted to look at the policies or any kinds of guideline documents which were created by uh, cooperatives of cooperatives, the national apex bodies of cooperatives as well. We considered both of these sources. Second, we also wanted to see the experiences of people who are heading cooperatives or these alliances, and also some people who have tried to implement it at their levels. And also, we wanted to look at outstanding kind of experiences from both ends of the spectrum, where the policy or the guideline is very effective. It is helping how the women's are experiencing cooperatives. And on the other side, if there are anything that could be learned to solve the existing issues in any of our countries. if there are, from the both ends, we wanted to bring in the examples to the table and learn if one country is really excellently experiencing one of the policies. We wanted to see how this is being done and how it can be brought into the attention of other countries and can be in a meaningful way copied into other places. So we wanted to look at the best practices and also understand the gaps and acknowledge that these best practices and gaps exist and what are the challenges that are limiting women's inclusion at policy level and policy implementation level. We also wanted to create a comprehensive gender policy created a framework based on the outputs and insights that we had from different countries. So yes, thank you. I will stop here without taking much time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajeshwari. So I guess now we can move on to the country presentations. And for the first one, I would like to invite Dr. Sidsel Grimstad to give us the country presentation for Australia. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Professor Sidsel, you're on mute.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. Thank you. Sorry about that little clip. Okay, so I was one of the country-based researchers responsible for reporting on Australia. I am an adjunct senior lecturer at the Griffith Business School in Queensland, Australia. So we were first, we have a short period of time, so we have a lot to get through in each of these 10 minutes. But I just first wanted to mention in the country context that a lot has happened in Australia as a nation, I would say, when it comes to gender equity. And this can be explained through our improved ranking in the global gender gap from 25th place to the 13th place within the last 10 years. And some of the reasons for that is that women have gained a lot more political influence, both in parliament and in other areas. The education level of women has surpassed men at university level. And we have, or as a country, there has been legislation that has ensured flexible work and childcare policies, such as parental leave and so on. So these are kind of big national initiatives that has really improved the situation for women in Australia. Going back to the cooperative sector in Australia, we are a very small cooperative nation compared to many of the Asian countries. We have 1,834 cooperatives, and we have up to 37 members. Of course, members can be members of multiple co-ops. We don't have a record of how many women members we have, so that's an interesting kind of fact. But what I would say, what our cooperative and mutual enterprise sector leaders have been concerned about or have been focused about is how many are employed in cooperative and mutuals. So we've found directly the sector employs around 90 or up to 95,000 people. But what is even more important is that the CMEs, the cooperative mutual sector, they support small businesses and local and family businesses in the regions because they are more community focused. So what the CME, the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals, have been concerned about is how many jobs, in a way, does the CME sector influence? And what they have found is that the CME have kind of support indirect employment of up to 268,000 jobs. And the majority of these employees in the sector are women. So, the sector, the federation are looking at how can gender equality policies that are implemented in CMEs, that they think that this has a substantial impact beyond the sector because it supports so many other jobs in the sector. I'll very quickly go through major policy and legal frameworks that has been implemented in Australia. And I think it's important to say that these are national legislations. They are not CME specific policies or legislation. We have the Sex Discrimination Act from 1984 that protects all employees from unlawful discrimination in relation to gender, family status, and so on. In 2010, we finally got paid parental leave through a legislation. So it's now by law 12 weeks paid parental leave. And the last act that I think has had a substantial impact is the Workplace Gender Equality Act from 2012. Within this act requires all organizations, including CMEs or cooperatives and mutuals, with more than 100 employees to report annually, so every year, on gender equity indicators. And the indicators here are quite substantial. It is gender pay gap on each level. It is how many women are in leadership positions. It records family-friendly practices, flexible work arrangements, and whether there is active consultation with employees around how to make the workplace a better place for women. And also, I think it has quite a lot of focus on family, on parents. So in conclusion, there are no CME specific, I mean cooperative mutual enterprise specific policies or legislation in Australia. But of course, the Workplace Gender Equality Act needs to be adhered to by CMEs with more than 100 employees. So these are kind of the main legal frameworks. In 2016, the national peak body, the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals, they decided to gather additional data to the Workplace Gender Equality Act, particularly around women in leadership positions. So from 2016, they have annually gathered this data. And what they have found is that there has been a substantial increase from 2016 to 2025, so the last 10 years. And certainly, as I will show in the next slide, we have much higher women leadership, both female chair, female CEOs in the top 100 cooperatives and mutual enterprises in Australia than in the stock listed companies, the ASX. So as you can see, the cooperative and mutuals are the white and the black column, whereas the stock listed companies, the corporate companies, are the green, the slanted green and light green columns. So as you can see, the cooperative sector has always been higher since we recorded these leadership statistics. I think that's interesting because we can see that more women as executives and on boards also changes the organizational focus. And many of these cooperatives are in rural communities, so we also see that it changes slightly the way they look at community welfare, for instance. One of our case studies, the Yenda Producer Cooperative, they said, oh, we provide now mental health support, we provide health, general health, both men and women health clinics, because there's lacking health practitioners in the rural areas. So this is how we see that more women in the leadership changes the perspective of what a cooperative does for the community. One of the things we also found was that women leader networks are important so that they get strength from each other and learn from each other on how to implement more family-friendly policies in the organization. Another interesting thing from the case study from Yenda Producer Cooperative, which is a rural cooperative, is that as rural demography changes, there's quite a turnover of older farmers. Some farms shuts down, but other farmers are taken over by women. And also with the higher education among women, we see women in, what should I say, untraditional roles as agronomists, as technical advisors, and so on. And this has an impact on how the cooperative runs. I think, and last, I think these demographic and educational changes in the rural areas have changed, have meant that both that the leadership of these co-ops have realized both genders that they need to work towards more gender diversity. So challenges for Australia. Little is known about gender diversity in smaller CMEs because this is not recorded. So CMEs with less than 100 employees. But anecdotally, I think there is a belief that smaller co-ops often have more women. I don't know if this follows a trend of feminization of the CME sector. I think that would be a really interesting study. But I also think there can be a danger in looking at only women in the leadership roles and to not make it tokenistic, because it needs to have an impact further down in the organization. So we improve women's position throughout. For instance, implementing family-friendly work and flexible work, child care policies, and also anti-discrimination awareness. And another finding is that both genders exhibit cultural gender stereotypes. Stories, the case study showed that also women employees, they don't respect women leaders. So this is something to be looked at. So I think recommendations: improve reporting on gender equity in smaller CMEs, raise awareness around stereotypes, build women leadership networks, I think is very important. It was very much requested. And what I think has been very specific in Australia is that the peak bodies want to make CMEs the employers of choice, because we have such a big impact with regards to employment, and employment is often the most important. Secure employment is often the most important for women who take care of their children and their families. So being a preferred employer of choice for women is a very, I think, important goal. Yes, and then lastly, I think there is also discussion to be had around how can CME support other initiatives, adjacent initiatives that can support women employment indirectly through affordable housing and childcare. And that was my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sidsel. I would like to move to our next country presentation, and we're going alphabetically. So the next will be Nadia, Dr. Nadia from Jordan Cooperative Cooperation. Please, if you can have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, dear colleagues. I would like to express my thankful for the beautiful ladies share us and in doing this study. I want to share my my lecture. Just give me a few seconds. My colleagues will help me. Can you help me, please? Okay, share. Where is the... Yes. Okay, can you give me the approval? Thank you. Again, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present the Jordan country insights as a part of this important regional study. Everyone can see my my lecture? Okay, thank you.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Okay. This presentation highlights the cooperative context in Jordan, the policy and legal framework supporting gender equality, key findings, key challenges, and recommendations. And the aim is to provide a brief overview of how gender inclusion is being promoted in cooperatives and identify areas where further progress can be made. So let's start with country context. In Jordan, the cooperative sector plays an important role in supporting local economic development, particularly in rural areas, agriculture, and community-based intensives. Over the past years, women's participation in cooperatives has gradually increased, especially at the membership level. However, this increased participation has not always translated into leadership or decision-making positions. Women often face challenges related to access to finance, training opportunities, and institutional support. Gender inclusion is encouraged through national development priorities with the growing attention to women's economic employment and their contribution to cooperative governance and sustainability. Policy and legal framework. Gender equality in Jordan's cooperative sector is promoted mainly through the Jordan Cooperative Corporation, as abbreviation JCC. The cooperative reform agenda is aligned with the National Strategy for Women 2020 to 2025 and contributes to achieve sustainable development, goal number 5, on gender equality. Incentive mechanisms have been introduced to encourage women-led cooperatives and increase women's representation. However, these efforts are legally embedded within border gender mainstreaming frameworks, and there are limited cooperative specific legal mandates that enforce gender equality within cooperative governance structures. Now we can discuss the key findings. The findings indicates that women's participation in cooperatives is increasing, particularly at the membership level. Institutional intensives and national gender strategies have helped encourage women's engagement. However, women's representation in leadership and decision-making positions remains limited. The progress observed is mainly policy-driven and voluntarily rather than based on legally binding requirements. Therefore, gender inclusion outcomes are vary across cooperatives depending on institutional commitment and leadership support. What are the challenges and the gaps here in Jordan? There are limited cooperative specific legal mandates to ensure women's representation. Enforcement and monitoring mechanisms are relatively weak, affecting implementation. Gender inclusion often depends on leadership, socio-cultural barriers, limited access to finance, and capacity gaps continue to influence women's participation and leadership opportunities within cooperatives in Jordan. What are the recommendations? The recommendations in Jordan to strengthen the gender equality in cooperatives here in Jordan, several actions are recommended. What are they? These include strengthening cooperative-specific gender provisions, improving monitoring and accountability mechanisms, expanding incentives for women-led cooperatives. In addition, enhancing leadership training and capacity building programs for women can support their effective participation in governance and decision making. These measures would help translate policy commitment into sustainable and measurable outcomes across the cooperative sector. Finally, as a conclusion, Jordan has made an important progress in promoting gender inclusion in cooperative through policy alignment and institutional support. However, stronger enforcement mechanisms and targeted capacity building efforts are needed to ensure meaningful and sustainable participation of women in leadership and decision-making roles. And I would like to share with you a small video for the cooperative movements in Jordan. Try to enjoy this video. Thank you for everyone help me to let this study come out to the world, and please enjoy the video. By the way, you can hear the Arabic sound, but the words are translated to English. ما في صوت الفيديو.
Dr. Nadia, we can't hear the sound on this video.
Okay.
Okay, 26 events combined. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nadia. Well, it was wonderful. The country presentation, we did not hear the sound, but we did read the subtitles on the video.
No problem. It was in Arabic.
Okay. So we have a few people who have joined. So I would like to give a very slight brief about Dr. Nadia. Dr. Nadia Mazen Mohammed Alkhassawneh is an agriculture engineer and cooperative expert with over 20 years of experience in agriculture management. She just talked about the country presentation and the country findings from Jordan. And right before Dr. Nadia, we had Dr. Sidsel Grimstad, who is the chair for the ICA-AP Committee on Cooperative Research and an adjunct at Griffith Business School and teaches MBA courses on innovation for impact, ESG, and sustainability measurement. These are the two country presentations that we had so far. And now I would like to move on to Dr. Dynah. And brief about her, Dr. Dynah Basuil is a professor at the Asian Institute of Management and serves as executive director of the Ramon V. Del Rosario Senior Center on Enterprise for Society. She is an independent trustee at the Cooperative College of the Philippines and an advisor board member of the Armed Forces of the Philippines Leadership Development Center. The stage is yours, Dr. Dynah.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, and it is an honor to be part of this research collaboration. It's my first time, and let me go ahead and share my presentation on a review of gender-based policies in cooperatives in the Philippines. I hope that you're able to see my slides. All right. In terms of the Philippine cooperative sector, similar to Australia and Jordan, we do have a very robust cooperative movement here in the Philippines, about almost 21,000 registered cooperatives. This is the latest data that we have in 2024. About 10% of those are newly established cooperatives, and we've got 13.6 million cooperative members. A lot of the cooperatives are really multi-purpose cooperatives, so they could be what you call consumer retail and then also have credit, so combination of those. But there's also a large number that's agricultural based and of course credit cooperatives. In terms of the economic contribution of the cooperatives in the Philippines, their asset consists of 813.8 billion Philippine pesos, which represents about 3% of the country's GDP and generates about 335,000 employment. So that's direct employment and definitely bigger indirect contribution to employment. 65% of our cooperatives are categorized as micro cooperatives, and that's why there's really a lot of those cooperatives here. In terms of the role of gender and some key statistics, what we see is that similar to, again, Jordan, there's a gap with participation, meaning a lot of women are members in cooperatives, but they cannot be seen in leadership roles, which are still largely held by men. There is a higher representation of women, but in terms of decision making, they are less represented. 60% of the primary cooperatives do have what they call gender and development committees, and you will see later on why that is in terms of the legal frameworks. And in terms of the regulatory constraint, when we had interviewed the Cooperative Development Authority, the agency in charge of overseeing cooperatives, there's only one cooperative development specialist that oversees up to 84 cooperatives. So there's really a gap there where not all of the cooperatives are being regulated properly. In terms of the legal framework, we are really we have national policies when we're in gender and development is part of the country's blueprint in terms of overall development. We have that in all of our national development plans, the National Plan for Gender Responsive Development, and also the Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Plan. There we have a Magna Carta of Women, which is about 15 years already. I think it was created in 2009. And the Philippine Commission on Women is the national agency that oversees all these policies across the country. Now, in terms of instruments within the cooperative sector, we do have two pieces of legislation that was sent out by the Cooperative Development Authority, again, the one national agency overseeing all cooperatives. And this was in 2013 where they talked about mainstreaming gender and development, which includes the creation of gender and development committees in all cooperatives. And then after 4 years, they talked about creating a tool. So they created this tool where it will measure the progress of gender equality across all cooperatives, which is a requirement to be submitted. So we do have that data so that they can become compliant with the Cooperative Development Agency. But then again, what you will see later as well in terms of challenges and gaps, there's not a whole lot of effort to look at that data that's being collected by cooperatives as a result of this memorandum circular. In terms of our findings for this review, we do have strong policy and legal foundations, but of course, there's still a gap in terms of implementing this policy effectively. Women are active in cooperatives, but still underrepresented in leadership roles. And of course, because there is a policy, gender and development is done for compliance and not necessarily to really mainstream gender and achieve gender equality. There is progress. There are gender and development structures in 60% of the co-ops. There's a rising number of women as members and in management positions. But again, I think to represent the number of women as members, that number of leadership and management needs to keep up. Gender inclusion is gaining recognition as a core value, and of course, there's expanded gender responsive programs. One of the co-ops that we did interview already present or create products and services that are really catered to their women members. So they've actually really incorporated gender into their products and services as well. And at the community, there's really a high level of participation for women. But again, some of the best practices that we have seen to be effective is some policy level at the co-op itself in terms of gender and development. So they have very specific policies on hiring, pay, promotion. They always talk about it has to be equal for both men and women. Some have leadership quotas and gender targets, which are good starting points in order to mainstream gender. Some flexible work and caregiving support. Again, the gender responsive products and services and gender monitoring tools and peer learning spaces at the co-op itself. However, in terms of our challenges, there's really still some resource and time constraints, limited engagement of women at the broader, membership levels. So the CDA, the agency that oversees co-ops, they have no way to systematically visit the co-ops. I mean, because there's like 84 to 1, regulator, which becomes really impossible to directly observe, how gender is being mainstreamed. Our study, of course, we only looked at a few of the over 20,000 cooperatives in the Philippines. We hope that we can get more. While the findings are indicative, they are not necessarily representative. So we hope that we can get, more time and be able to get better representation. There is sex disaggregated data, right? But then again, that data is mainly at the co-op. It's not being aggregated nationally so that we can have a better picture of how gender is being mainstreamed in the Philippines. In terms of our recommendation, of course, we do want to be able to shift the behavior from a simply compliance to core cooperative value in terms of gender equality. So it's really important to institutionalize gender and development in cooperatives, integrate their targets into the vision, mission, and performance systems so that it can actually be tracked on um, how well cooperatives are progressing. And hopefully there could be a way to benchmark the cooperatives in the Philippines to some of their peers in the region. And definitely incentivize measurable gender outcomes, we believe is a way to get this done. Promote more pathways to women's leadership, but there's still in the rural areas a lot of expectations around gender roles. And so if there's one story that we had heard was that some co-ops want to promote women in leadership, and yet the women themselves do not want to be promoted into leadership roles because they are still expected to perform their roles at home. And so they're the ones who actually hold themselves back. The opportunities there. And so what we think can be done is perhaps to incentivize again greater women representation, especially at the highest level at the board. Perhaps provide leadership training, mentorship, and capacity building programs that will encourage women to go up the leadership ladder. Also strengthening capacity monitoring systems, enhancing the CDA, the development agency responsible for cooperatives nationally, for the regional focal points. Make sure that they are staffed. Of course, I mean, there's probably limited, this is more of a budget constraint. Maybe also include digital tools so that data collection and tracking can be facilitated. Simplify the tools for micro cooperatives. We have a lot of micro cooperatives, and even though the tools are like in Excel, very simple, it's still quite challenging for some of them. And invest in impact assessments, definitely, and share best practices, provide a forum where all cooperatives can share their best practices, and also address cultural and social barriers. I think we need to have a bit more change in mindset in terms of, women is the only one that could do a lot of the housework. Maybe a number of this could be shared that will free up the opportunities for women to become more active in cooperatives. Integrate gender awareness in member education programs, and also showcase women leaders as role models. And I think that's pretty much for the Philippines. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Dynah. I would now like to invite Dr. Jiyun Jeon, who is currently a research professor in the Department of Social and Entrepreneurship and Humanistic Future Studies at Sungkyunkwan University in South Korea. Dr. Jiyun, the floor is yours. Apologies if I'm saying your name wrong. Please.
It's okay. Your pronunciation is correct. So thank you for inviting me this
Thank you. It's a
meaningful
relief.
colloquium. Actually, for this colloquium, I further developed my study with my student, Ning Il-dan. She also participated in this colloquium now, and I also would like to appreciate her efforts. Okay, so I will explain about gender-based policies in cooperative in South Korea. And in this report, I focus on agricultural cooperatives and consumer cooperatives. So the cooperative sector in South Korea has been developed through three different phases. In the first period, the government, especially military regime, play a significant role to develop primary cooperative. And these cooperatives were used as a tool to boost national economy. And this type of cooperative presents a stately development history, a hierarchical organizational structure, and comparatively sufficient institutional support. But after 1987, when the Korean society was democratized, diverse voices in civil society emerged, and consumer cooperative movement is one of them. And consumer co-op emerged, influenced by environmental, farmers, and even feminist movement. So this type of cooperative presents a movement-led development history, a horizontal organizational structure, and comparatively insufficient institutional support. And in 2020, a very significant change took place in cooperative sector in South Korea. Until 2012, 8 cooperative sectors were governed by separate laws and ministry. So cooperative activists and excluded sector, especially social welfare sector, pushed government to enact new legal framework. So in 2012, the Framework Act on Cooperative was enacted. And after that, more diverse types of cooperative emerged in South Korea. So in terms of gender, cooperative has played a very important role in South Korean context because despite women's high educational attainment in South Korea, significant gender gaps persist. In this context, cooperatives have been promoted as women-friendly workplaces and job creation tools. But when you take a look at it closely, the gender disparities are very diverse, depends on cooperative type, then why and how these differences happen. So in these reports, firstly, we review national level of gender policies and laws. And like any other countries, we also have very broad gender equality laws. But in South Korea, we don't have a single apex organization overseeing all cooperatives. So only this national level of gender policies partially control the cooperative. And all of them actually empathize women's participation, empowerment, and gender equal organizational culture. But despite these shared institutional pressures, gender institutionalization and practices very diverse across the cooperative sector. So we argue that the differences in historical trajectory, organizational form, and institutional context have shaped these different patterns of gender practices. So in the case of agricultural cooperative, the field was shaped by state-led history and hierarchical structure and strong institutional supports. In this context, agricultural cooperative more focused on improving women's participation in governance because Korean government also emphasized these policies that readily measured and quantified. So according to this governmental policy, the agricultural cooperative also emphasize more the quantitative approaches in terms of gender. So when you look at the Agricultural Cooperative Act and Female Farmer Development Policy, you can see they present specific number or ratio of women's participation in the governance. Of course, they operate some educational program for women's leadership or empowerment, but this program have limitation as it indirectly addresses gender disparity issues that is rampant in agricultural sector. In contrast, in the case of consumer cooperative, the field has been shaped by strong civil society movements, horizontal organizational structure, and institutional constraints. So these characteristics have shaped very distinctive gender institutionalization and practice in this field, even though consumer cooperative field, they don't have exact framework or policy on gender, but compared to other cooperative, they present more advanced gender practices. And we believe that it's because of their historical backgrounds and organizational structures. Also, the institutional constraints influence their gender practices. When Consumer Cooperative Act was established in 1999, it prohibited sales to non-members. It means that the viability of organization is heavily relying on members' participation, and most of the members are women. So strengthen their membership and commitment is very important strategy for consumer cooperative. In this context, some consumer cooperative clearly states that gender equality, women's issues, and their happiness is our core identity and value in the mission statements or members' declaration. So based on this value and identity, some consumer co-op have developed good practices. As they don't have enough institutional resources, they made a partnership with a university. And university has offered specialized education with the female members, and they became the leader, and they back to the consumer co-op and participate in the governance. And also some consumer co-op made a solidarity with the female farmers to change gendered practices in the agricultural sector. And some of them extended their network with other women's co-op in other Asian countries. And another consumer co-op also operates the Women's Career Development Center. And through this educational program, they try to spread the co-ops model as a startup business model. Okay, so this is key findings from the Korean case. At the national level, the 4 different national law and policies influence the cooperative sector partly, but each cooperative have shaped very different gender institutionalization and practice. We argue that historical trajectory, organizational structure, and institutional context have made these differences. In the case of agricultural cooperative, more emphasized on gender policies that can be readily measured and quantified. In the case of consumer co-op, because of institutional constraints, they're more focused on strengthening the members' participations and the strong membership or commitment. So this is the challenges and gaps of our study. In South Korea, like the Philippines and other countries, there is no apex organization that can manage the whole cooperative sector. So we don't have comprehensive gender policies on cooperative. But some cooperatives, such as consumer co-op, have shown the best practices. And I think that is because of the historical trajectory, organizational structure, and different institutional contexts. It means that the practitioners and policymakers should focus on this specific institutional context and have developed more tailored gender policies. Depends on the types of cooperative. Okay, so that is my presentation, and thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jiyun and Yedan Ning, for your wonderful presentation and contribution. I would like to now move to the last country presentation for this Coop Colloquium, Ms. K.W. Kashini Gimhani, who is the Director, Center for Quality Assurance at Sanasa Campus, Sri Lanka. Ms. Gimhani is an academic and higher education professional with over 11 years of experience in university level teaching and research. She holds a master's degree in economics from the University of Colombo, and her areas of expertise include business economics, project planning, evaluation, spatial economics, gender economics, and microfinance. Ms. Gimhani, the floor is yours, please.
you very much for the introduction. And am I audible to you all?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. And hope you can see the screen of mine as well.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you once again for giving the opportunity for me to join with you all and joining as the country researcher for Sri Lankan context. And basically, Sri Lanka, when it comes to the Sri Lankan context, as the other presenters, we are having the grassroots level contribution from these cooperatives towards the economic development in Sri Lanka. And when it comes to the rural areas and also the marginalized groups, also they are get the credit facilities as well as the financial services and the income opportunities as well as the empowerment opportunities through this cooperative context. And there are 15,000 cooperatives with 8.4 million members in Sri Lankan context. It covered approximately 38% presentations from the total population. And when it comes to the women, their role in the participation of these activities related to the cooperatives, yes, there are 65%, that is higher number of participation from the women as the members, that is the thing. And when it comes to the leadership and the decision making process and also the area that they want to involving in the making the changes in the society level or grassroots level, yes, we are having some kind of a problem, low representation in the boards, committees, as in the management roles. When it comes to the policy and the legal framework related to the women participation, there are three things that I want to highlight out of that. The constitutional and the fundamental legal framework. Yes, they are having some descriptions, as you can see, the Constitution of Sri Lanka as well as the Women's Charter and also the law itself, basically for the violence and the reproductive rights for the women. We are having the clauses related to the especially related to the women participation. And the next one is the national level policy and the development plans. As you can see, I can highlight there are three now we are engaging in, like national policy on gender equity and women's empowerment, national action plan on women, peace and security, and the multi-sectoral national action plan to address the sexual and gender-based violence. Like that, we are having national policy towards the, not for the cooperative especially, but for the women participations toward the labor force. When it comes to the third segment that I want to highlight and which very related to the context of our research, the national policy on this gender integration in cooperatives. Yes, I think we are having, especially with the other four presentations, I can see that the difference is there in here in Sri Lanka. 2023, we are having this kind of a policy under the theme of developing people, developing cooperatives. And the policy was developed in 2023. And with the help of the VFX project, and we are having the apex body called NCCSL, a National Cooperative Council in Sri Lanka. That is the apex body for the all cooperatives in Sri Lanka. And they have developed this policy. Yes, we are having three, what we call, there are three main languages in Sri Lanka: Sinhala, that is our mother tongue, and also the English and the Tamil. We are having three, what we call the policy documents with the name of, like, as you can see in the title, National Policy on Gender Integrations in Cooperatives. And that has been introduced to the all cooperatives in Sri Lanka through the programs, the awareness programs from the NCCSL. And there are 5 key scopes of interventions, and the main aim of there was to create some equal platform to the both women and men working in the cooperatives. That 5 interventions are the cooperative governance and the operations of the cooperative enterprises, employment in cooperatives that describe how the employment should be there in the cooperatives. The guidelines was there. And the capacity development and the empowerment at the last, gender-based data and the informations, how they have to attend their data related to the gender-based. like that. But the thing is, after the VEFX project winding up, this module only has been limited to a paper. That is the thing that I want to highlight in Sri Lankan context. I did some what we call interviews, and as well as with the policymakers towards this kind of a work at NCCSL as well. The document is there, and also the project manager also there related to this kind of a module. But the thing is, they only have, I think, nearly 15 awareness programs after that. When the VEFX project has been closed in Sri Lankan context, this policy document itself be there in the cupboard, and it is not practically implemented now in Sri Lankan context in the cooperative. But I have to, along with the research that I had done, the key findings, yes, we can identify the best practices, because before this kind of a policy, there was no any kind of, these societies have their own bylaws. Actually, that was authorized by the cooperative department, but that not contribute to the ensuring of the women's participation or representations toward the reserve board, the number of reserved board seats for the women, that was not highlighted like that. Therefore, this kind of policy I think they have created itself some kind of best practices to the cooperatives. Think about what are the gender focal points that they can address in the grassroots level, and how they can build up the capacity building programs, because that 5 aspects itself give the sense to the reader that there should be a space for women to participate to the cooperative, not as the member, but as the CEO or a chairman or whatever the person who can get the decision related to their concerns. And key initiatives that they have done, I think we can highlight some women-led enterprises has been developed through this kind of a work. As an example, Sanasa Uttamavi, that was some kind of establishment like that. And there are TOT programs, the awareness programs, the sessions was done, especially in the rural areas, when it comes to the cooperative societies for the consumer products, as well as the labor cooperatives. They have done these kind of community awareness programs, especially in the state sector, that is very what we call the marginalized group people are living in there. And the financial empowerment was also done with this kind of policy work, and integration also done with the governance, employment, and the data system. These are the best practices and the key initiatives that I took out of this kind of intervention, the policy document. But what I have to highlight is in here, the policies itself, it's not, it is insufficient, because when I discuss with the people who are involving in preparing and the responsible for this kind of policy designing, they highlighted that the attitude change is also a concerning point. Even though the reservation numbers are there in the board, that's mean the women representation, this must, out of the 7, there should be 2 women representatives for a particular primary society. But then again, there is a what we call there is a problem. Even though the bylaws has been changed, there is insufficient numbers of women who are participating to the general meeting, because in the general meeting only they can be elected as the representatives or the board. Then they are not coming to the numbers are very less related to the actually the numbers are less, as well as the numbers, if the number is high, but they are not willing to get that kind of what we call the responsibility, or they are not willing to join as the board. And then there is another adverse effect counting from the continuous monitoring, because of the project has been not continuing. The monitoring system also has been waived off, and the leadership commitment and the critical that was very critical for the sustainability of this kind of implementation of a project. Then the challenges and the gaps from Sri Lankan context, the low representation of women in leadership, despite the high membership, as I mentioned. Even though the number of heads are there in the meeting, they are not willing to get the responsibility towards the changes. And the limited enforcement and monitoring of gender policies after initial implementations, weak institutional support, because the apex body is also not further monitoring this kind of policy document, and also the regulatory authorities are not continuing their monitoring now. And the lack of gender sensitive preventions to the Cooperative Act and the internal regulations, even though the policy is there, that has been not gazetted as an act. If that is not the act, there is no any kind of intervention, what we call motivation to the cooperatives to implement that kind of a one. And next, the common to, I think, especially to our countries, that's mean the social, cultural barriers. Like women, they have to face the family responsibilities and the time constraints. That may be the case. And the social norms and attitudes discourage some kind of leadership participation of the women. They may be fear with the criticisms. If they elected to the board, they have to be responsible, and if they want to get the decisions, there are maybe some criticisms. They may afraid to get that kind of responsibility because of that. And also the limited awareness of these women. Even though the policy is there, and also the highlighted concerns are there, they may not knowing those things. That may be the thing and a concerning point out of our research. And I discussed with the NCCSL as well. Yes, they are willing to highlighting and monitoring this in the further what we call in the future as well. But there is another problem with the budget that they are having, and also there are no any kind of responsible person who are going to monitoring that one from the NCCSL side. Like that, there is an operational gap as well. And from my side, the recommendations.
Sorry, Ms. Gimhani. Yeah, we can move on with the recommendation. Just wanted to remind you, we're slightly crunching on the time. So if
Okay,
you
okay.
can be set. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Then
Apologies.
okay, recommendations, as you can see, the policy recommendations and the institutions improvements are there. But I want to highlight the last one, the prioritize the actions. There are 4 things that I think we can do as the immediate one. Set up this gender monitoring system and reporting channels. Even though the implementation societies are there, the policies, we can set up the monitoring systems if they are having that kind of system. What is their progress like that? And the short term, medium term, and long term, as you can see, we can think about how we can do, how we can make the changes more effectively towards the implementation of this kind of a policy. Okay, thank you very much. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Ms. Gimhani. I'm sorry. So there's barely any time for questions, but we have one from Professor Mishra, and I guess it's open to the research team. So whoever will be okay. The question is, what strategy went into designing convenience sampling? What was the strategy for benchmarking? And was there any sector-based research to establish granularity? I believe it's 3 questions. So if any one of you would like to, answer this.
If I may share, in the Philippines, unfortunately, I think the timeline did not allow us to have a better strategy, like we said, right? I mean, we only interviewed quite a handful of cooperatives and key informants, including the regulator, the Cooperative Development Authority. We would love to be able to do sectoral, to have a granularity and see how gender and development differs across those sectors. So I think that's a good step forward in terms of expanding this research and see if there are any differences. So thank you for the question.
Yeah. Well, we're really on the crunch of time, so I'm really sorry for through, but I hope that it was a good answer for you, Professor Mishra. And with that, I would like to invite you actually to the floor and give your comments and reflections. For everyone who has joined us, Professor H.K. Mishra is the Vice Chair for the ICA-AP's Committee on Cooperative Research. Please, sir, can we have your comments and reflections? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy that I've been part of this colloquium today. And I hope such colloquia will follow regularly. And we shall remain engaged in a very sensitive area that we always look upon. If I would like to give a very honest beginning to my comments, it's not a comment, rather my feeling that is coming out. It is quite contemporary that we must discuss about gender nuances in cooperatives. My career in cooperative sector, being part of the faculty at Institute of Rural Management, Anand, for about 30 odd years, we have been advocating the role of gender in cooperatives. And for that matter, collectives. We are not limited to only cooperatives. So the first reaction came to me when I went through the report. I was a little bit interested more in looking at other forms of collectives, not cooperatives, because we are expected to get insights from other forms of collectives. So, for example, if I look at Mavim in India, Seva in India, especially gender-driven, women-driven rather, will be very specific. And we can see a lot of things are happening around those collectives as well. They're also getting into farmer-producer companies. They are also getting into supply chains. They're getting into insurance. So it leaves a lot of scope for furthering our research, keeping the gender nuances in the backdrop. So I must be interested, rather to be engaged with in such type of sector-based research, because cooperatives are mostly at the local context. And I was looking at the Indian context rather. I will not go through these ICA-AP policies or sustainable development goals. A lot of things have been told. They're all in public domain, and we can go on and on. But the issue here is that if we look at our stable labor force participation rate in India, I was looking at the rural-urban setup, which talks about male around 80.5%, urban 76.2%, female 45.9%, urban 27.7%. Unemployment rate, male is at 2.6 in rural areas. In urban, it is 4.2, female 2.1 in rural, and in urban 6.4. But major striking area that comes to my mind to share with you is that 44% of the respondents, these are Press Information Bureau of Government of India report, say that around 44% of women, they still like to continue with childcare, personal commitments, and so on. So if the catchment has to come up to encourage cooperative movement with gender nuances, a basic structure must be in favor. So we have to catch those insights through some type of research framework or research rigor to bring all those things across country so that we can learn from each other. That's the first thing I must talk about. Look at the education. In India, male around 83.3%, and female around 51.1%. So if you look at the population, 51.54% male, female 48.46. So we have to be a little bit, sensitive to the societal geography or fabric before we expect a lot of things to happen around women cooperatives. Rather, there are other forms, as I said earlier. Collectives can be there who can also give some inspiration to cooperative structure. Being part of the national cooperation policy design, a part of the that formulated national cooperation policy of Government of India that came up in 2025. It was set up in 2022. We had a rigorous exercise on how to bring gender disparity into the table so that we can address them. Similarly, I have been part of our state cooperation policy, having same ideology to ensure that gender sensitivity comes to a level of acceptance. And but that brings us to ask few questions about, are the women in cooperative sector ready to be trainers, ready to be on education space, ready to be on research space, ready to be on production space? If those readiness quotients are not available, perhaps we may not be expecting a lot of changes or drastic shift in our thought process. So we have to be very careful about. I'm very happy to see in research that in your research there is a section on representation versus empowerment. That's very interesting part of it, and I would like to see more research on this area. Then we are very much grappled with data sets which are limiting us, to have research. So we have to, this research committee is trying very hard under the leadership of Sidsel, that we have to get into those pain points and see more and more research comes up. But I must congratulate the team. More will be there when we conclude in the part 2, and I am very much eagerly looking forward. Thank you very much for bringing a beautiful research report to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Mishra, for your succinct summary of the report and your reflections. As we bring today's session of Coop Colloquium 17 to a close, it is my distinct privilege on behalf of the International Cooperative Alliance, Asia and Pacific, to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks to everyone who made this discussion so insightful and impactful. We could not have the secretary of the committee, Mr. Naveen, today, so I'm filling into his shoes. And I would be, I'm deeply grateful to our distinguished panel, Dr. Rajeshwari C, Ms. Simren Singh, Dr. Sidsel Grimstad, Dr. Jiyun Jeon, Ms. K.W. Kashini Gimhani, Dr. Dynah Abigail T. Basuil, and Dr. Nadia Alkhassawneh. Thank you for sharing your expertise, your lived experiences, and your contributions, which have profoundly enriched the understanding of gender policies and cooperatives across the region. Our sincere thanks go to the ICA-AP Committee on Women for their leadership in this regional study and for curating such a timely colloquium. To our participants, thank you for your active engagement. I'm sorry we did not have enough time today because the country presentations, it's very difficult, I would say, for all the country researchers to present so much about a country in such limited time. But thank you for patiently listening and for contributing. I hope you will send your questions to us when we, and we'll definitely get back to you within a week's time. Before you leave, we have just shared a link to a feedback form in the chat, and we would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to share your thoughts, your inputs. They are valuable in helping us shape future sessions. And please remember that this is only part 1 of our series. We look forward to welcoming you all back on 29th of April for part 2, where we will feature presentations from India, Nepal, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Japan. And registrations will be open very soon, and we hope to see you all there. Uh, thank you. Thank you so much again for your time, the passion, your participation, and have a very wonderful the rest of the day.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ayushman.
everybody.
Thank you.
For the knowledge of everybody here, Ayushman means long live. So let us live strong.
Thank you, Ayushman.
Thank
It
you.
was very well
Thank you.
led, the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye to everybody.
Bye to everybody. Yeah.